Welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So today we're tackling something really relevant for a lot of people based on the sources you shared with us.
Yeah, it's about how individuals with ADHD and, related executive function differences can really succeed at work.
Not just get by, but actually thrive, especially now with remote and hybrid work being so common.
Exactly. We've got a mix here, articles, some research, and interestingly, a lot of real-world perspectives from online communities.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, all centered around ADHD, executive function, remote work challenges, accommodations, and finding the right career fit. It's your curated deep dive.
Awesome. Let's jump in. So first off, this huge shift in how we work, remote and hybrid, it's just normal now, isn't it?
It really is. It's not a niche thing anymore. We saw some stats, I think, from the Edge Foundation source, drawing on Pew Research data.
Mm-hmm.
Something like 14% of U.S. adults working from home full-time,
Okay.
and another 41% are hybrid. Plus, they're projecting, over 1 in 5 Americans working remotely by 2025?
That's a huge chunk of the workforce.
It really is. A massive adjustment.
And for people with ADHD, the sources seem pretty clear. This shift, it's got upsides and downsides. It's complicated.
Yeah, definitely a double-edged sword that came through really strongly.
So what are the benefits? What makes remote work potentially great?
Well, the big one is flexibility. You get more control over your schedule, which is, vital if your focus isn't consistent 9 to 5.
Right, you can work when you're on.
Exactly. And you can shape your environment. Need total silence, noise-canceling headphones, need specific background noise. You can do that. You avoid all those typical office distractions.
Yeah, the open office plan nightmare.
Totally. Plus, no commute time. That's a win for anyone, but especially if transitions are tough.
Sure.
And potentially it allows for better integration between work and the rest of your life.
Okay, those all sound really good, but what's the other edge of that sword?
The challenge is the lack of structure. That built-in scaffolding of the office disappears.
Ah, right, no external cues.
Precisely. So it's much easier to lose track of time. Procrastination can become a much bigger beast to wrestle with when you're entirely self-directed.
I can see that.
And those boundaries between work and home, they get incredibly blurry. It's hard to switch off.
Yeah.
Plus, without that sort of incidental supervision or just being around colleagues, starting tasks, following through, it can be significantly harder.
Leading to frustration, maybe feeling less productive even if you're working hard.
Exactly. That feeling of spinning your wheels.
This really brings us to a core idea in a lot of these sources. Executive function. We hear that term a lot with ADHD. Can you break down what it actually means based on the materials?
Sure. So sources like Transition CA, often referencing JN, the Job Accommodation Network, they define executive functions as these high-level mental skills.
Okay.
Think of them like the brain's management system. They direct basic stuff like attention and memory.
So what kind of tasks are we talking about?
Things like planning, organizing, strategizing, paying attention to details and remembering them, knowing when to start something, and importantly, when to stop.
Okay.
Also, abstract thinking, forming concepts, monitoring your own actions, regulating behavior, planning ahead, anticipating consequences, and adapting when things don't go as planned.
That's a lot of crucial stuff for work.
It really is. It's the skill set that helps you manage yourself and complex tasks.
So when the sources mention executive function deficits linked to ADHD, autism, learning disabilities, even brain injuries, they mean specific struggles in those areas.
Exactly. And places like JAO or UO people connect these directly to workplace difficulties. Things like trouble monitoring your own behavior or adapting it based on feedback.
Right.
Difficulty planning for new things, anticipating outcomes, adapting smoothly, sometimes challenges with social interactions, kind of fitting in.
And you people mentioned specific workplace impacts.
Yeah, they drew direct lines to things like chronic disorganization, forgetfulness, maybe creating a chaotic work environment unintentionally, and real struggles with planning tasks and prioritizing what needs to get done first.
Okay, so we see the remote work paradox and the underlying executive function challenges. But the good news is the sources don't just diagnose the problem, right? They offer solutions. Strategies.
Absolutely. The Edge Foundation piece, for instance, had some really practical strategies specifically for making remote work work.
Like what? How do you build that missing structure?
Well, first, establishing a routine. Seems obvious, but really setting regular work hours, scheduling breaks, maybe using something like the Pomodoro technique, work bursts, then short breaks.
Right, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off kind of thing.
Yeah, variations on that.
Yeah.
And consciously creating that separation between work time and personal time, Predictability helps a lot.
Workspace itself.
Crucial. Having a dedicated spot, even if it's small, that's just for work. Making it as distraction-free as you can, having your tools there. Simple tweaks like those noise-canceling headphones or visual reminders can really boost concentration.
Makes sense. What about tech?
Oh yeah, leveraging technology is huge. Time management apps, digital planners, alarms, automated reminders. Basically using tech as your external scaffolding, your accountability partner.
Like outsourcing some of that executive function.
Kinda, yeah.
Huh.
And setting really clear boundaries is another big one.
With colleagues, family.
Both. Define your work hours and then actually communicate them. Stick to them. It protects your personal time, prevents burnout, and helps you stay focused during work time.
What about the isolation factor of remote work?
Good point. Staying connected is key. Regular check-ins, virtual team meetings, working on collaborative projects. That social piece is important for motivation and just feeling like part of a team.
Yeah, you miss the water cooler chats sometimes, even the annoying parts.
You do. And finally, they really stress self-care.
The basics, like sleep and exercise.
Exactly. Exercise, balanced diet, enough sleep. They're not luxuries. They're the foundation for focus and energy. Mindfulness also came up for managing stress and emotions. It's holistic.
So it's about consciously building the right environment and systems around yourself.
That's it exactly. Compensating for those internal executive function differences with external supports.
And speaking of external supports, accommodations came up a lot too, linked to the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA.
Right. Resources like Transitions USA and the JADA materials explain that the ADA requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations.
Reasonable being the key word there.
Yes. Adjustments that let an employee with a disability, and that includes conditions impacting executive function, do the essential parts of their job.
And the Transition CA source had a ton of specific examples, didn't it? Really practical stuff.
Yeah, it was impressively detailed. For time management, they suggested things like breaking down big tasks, using timers, checklists, structuring transitions.
And color-coding calendars, I saw that.
Yeah, or even allowing a coworker or supervisor to help put things in the calendar.
Okay. What about memory issues?
Things like written instructions, checklists again, letting people record meetings, offering extra training, providing meeting minutes.
Flow charts for complex tasks?
Exactly. Using visual cues, notebooks, planners, sticky notes, even labeling where things go. Lots of memory aids.
And concentration, that's a big one.
Reducing distractions. So maybe noise-canceling headsets, sound absorption panels, white noise machines for auditory stuff.
Or physically changing the workspace.
Right. Higher cubicle walls, helping reduce clutter, maybe moving the workspace away from high-traffic areas to cut down visual distractions.
What if multitasking is the main struggle?
The ideal might be separating tasks. But if they have to overlap, using clear step-by-step flow charts, maybe with color coding, to guide the process.
And paperwork. Always a challenge for some.
Automation helps electronic forms, speech-to-text software, also pre-filled forms, templates using checklists instead of long written reports, redesigning forms to be clearer.
There was even stuff about social skills accommodations.
Yeah, that was interesting. Things like providing a job coach for social cues, giving really clear, specific feedback using training videos.
Maybe minimizing casual chat in work areas or sensitivity training for colleagues.
Exactly. And adjusting supervision styles. It's quite broad.
And it loops back flexible schedules, modified breaks, work from home. Those can be accommodations for attendance issues, too.
Precisely. Remote work itself can be a powerful accommodation.
This is all really helpful in terms of strategies and supports. But I liked how the sources also pushed for a different way of thinking about ADHD, not just as a deficit.
Right. That reframing is so important. UO people called it a brain functioning difference, not just a disorder.
Which ties into neurodiversity, right?
Exactly. That concept, which Transitions USA highlighted, is basically saying brains just work differently. There's no single correct way to think or process information.
And it's common, right? Like 15–20% of people.
Yeah, estimates are around that range. It covers ADHD, autism, dyslexia, lots of variations in brain wiring.
And shifting that perspective lets us see the strengths, not just the challenges.
Absolutely. That's the key. Sources like Transitions USA and UO people really hammered this home. Strengths like out-of-the-box thinking, huge creativity, innovation.
Problem solving from different angles.
Yes. And hyperfocus, that ability to dive incredibly deep into something interesting. Spontaneity, energy, intuition, inventiveness.
Things companies should actually want.
And some do. UO people mention companies actively recruiting neurodivergent talent, specifically for these traits.
The UO People source had those examples of successful people with ADHD traits, too.
Yeah, that was great. Michael Phelps channeling energy into swimming, Richard Branson, the ultimate entrepreneur.
Rory Bremner, Jamie Oliver, even
Yeah.
historical figures like Da Vinci.
Right, described as restless, always multitasking. JFK apparently worked hard on focus techniques. Justin Timberlake, Bill Gates said drive and energy.
So they often succeeded because of those traits, not despite them.
Exactly, by finding ways to harness them.
Which means finding the right job isn't about some stereotypical ADHD job, but about finding a fit for your specific brain.
That's the core message from Transitions USA and the Finding Work Guide. It's personal. It's about matching strengths, interests, and needs.
And those Reddit threads you mentioned gave some real-life examples of where people found that fit.
Oh, absolutely. Such valuable insights there. People thriving in jobs you might not expect.
Like jobs with lots of change and variety.
Yeah, things like reporting, bartending, constant novelty.
Or physical jobs, moving around helps.
Seems to, for many. Teaching, construction, landscaping, massage therapy came up.
And the creative problem-solving roles seem like a natural fit for hyperfocus.
Definitely. Software development, data analysis, graphic design, journalism, areas where deep dives and novel solutions are rewarded.
Interestingly, some mention structured jobs like accounting, but often with caveats about needing their own systems within that structure.
Right. It's not always about avoiding structure. Sometimes it's about finding the right kind or being able to implement your own.
And then the paradox thriving in chaos. Emergency services, kitchens.
Yes, that came up repeatedly. 911 dispatch, EMTs, ER nurses, chefs.
Why do you think that is?
The sources suggest it might be the constant urgency. It provides external motivation, maybe that dopamine hit that helps with focus when internal motivation for duller tasks is low, solving immediate problems, helping people. It's engaging.
Project work, too, with clear beginnings and endings.
Yeah, that provides structure and a sense of accomplishment.
And self-direction appeals to many. Entrepreneurship, freelance.
Big time. Freedom to set your own schedule, focus on passions. Remote work fits here, too.
Plus, people-focused roles for the extroverts. Teaching, hairstyling, real estate.
Bartending again, social media, leveraging interaction skills.
But it's clear, even in these good fit jobs, it's not necessarily easy. People mentioned burnout.
Absolutely. Emotional toll, still needing tools, struggling with routine parts, initiation difficulties. It's about finding the best balance for you.
And the sources had practical job-seeking tips, too.
Yeah, things like using volunteer work to build a resume, networking, maybe starting part-time, understanding expectations, and crucially, being ready to ask for accommodations. Maybe even using templates for that conversation.
And getting support like executive function coaching.
Definitely highlighted as a valuable tool for the job search and on the job.
Which brings us back to well-being. It seems foundational.
Absolutely critical. Transitions USA, Edge Foundation. They all stressed robust self-care, support systems, rest, actually using vacation and sick days. It's about sustainability.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big picture from this deep dive?
It's that navigating work with ADHD or executive function differences is complex, yes, but very doable. It involves understanding the challenges, especially with remote work.
But more importantly, shifting focus to the strengths.
Exactly. Recognizing and leveraging those unique strengths. Then actively building supportive environments, using strategies, getting accommodations if needed.
And making well-being a priority.
Non-negotiable. The goal isn't to fundamentally change who you are.
It's to find where your specific brain wiring is an asset.
Precisely. Finding that environment, that role, where you can genuinely thrive, not just cope.
Okay, so here's something for you, the listener, to think about after hearing all this. How might actively embracing the differences in how your brain works, maybe that need for novelty, the intense focus bursts, your unique way of seeing problems, that energy, how might leaning into those actually unlock career paths or maybe even entrepreneurial ventures that you previously wrote off because you were only seeing the challenges, not the potential strengths?